The studio lights burned bright, casting a warm glow over the set of the Kelly Clarkson Show. The audience buzzed with anticipation, their chatter a low hum as they waited for the next guest. Kelly Clarkson, all smiles and Texas charm, leaned forward in her chair, her hands clasped, ready to dive into the interview. The stage was set for a lively hour, the kind of feel-good TV that drew millions. Kevin Hart was the guest, a comedy titan whose rapid-fire humor and infectious energy had made him a household name. His new movie was out, and the buzz was electric. Everyone expected laughs, maybe a few heartfelt moments, the usual talk show fare. But something was off from the start. Kevin strode onto the stage, his signature grin in place, but his eyes darted, restless, like he was sizing up the room. The crowd erupted, clapping wildly, some standing to cheer. Kelly stood too, matching his energy, her laugh echoing as she hugged him. "Kevin Hart, y'all," she shouted, waving to the audience. They sat, and for a moment, it was perfect. The kind of TV magic producers dream of. Kevin cracked a joke about his height. The crowd roared, and Kelly tossed her head back, her laugh filling the studio. But beneath the surface, a tension simmered, unnoticed by most. It started with a question, innocent enough. Kelly, flipping through her note cards, leaned in. "So, Kevin, this new movie, it's got some heavy themes. Family, struggle, redemption. You've said it's personal. How much of you is in this role?" Her tone was warm, curious, the kind of question that usually led to a heartfelt story. But Kevin's smile tightened. Just for a second, he shifted in his seat, his fingers tapping the armrest. "It's a movie, Kelly," he said, his voice light but clipped. "I act, I don't live it." The audience chuckled, expecting a punchline, but none came. Kelly's brow furrowed, her smile faltering, but she pressed on. "Sure, but you've talked about your past, your mom, tough times. That's gotta bleed into the work, right?" The air shifted. Kevin's grin vanished, replaced by a hard stare. "Why is it always gotta be about that?" he said, his voice low, almost a challenge. The audience quieted, sensing the change. Kelly blinked, caught off guard, but recovered quickly. "I'm just saying, your fans love that realness, that heart you bring." She gestured to the crowd, trying to keep it light, but Kevin wasn't having it. "Fans love the jokes. Kelly, they don't need my life story dissected on your couch." His words cut sharp, and a murmur rippled through the audience. This wasn't the Kevin Hart they knew, the one who turned pain into laughter with ease. Kelly, ever the pro, tried to pivot. "Okay, let's talk comedy then. You're always pushing boundaries. Any lines you won't cross." It was a softball, a chance to reset. But Kevin leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "You want to talk lines? How about the line where people stop digging into stuff that's none of their business?" The crowd gasped. A few nervous laughs. Breaking the silence, Kelly's smile froze, her hands tightening on her cards. The producers offstage exchanged glances, their headsets buzzing with urgent whispers. Something was wrong, very wrong. The tension hung heavy, a live wire sparking in the studio. Kelly, her voice steady but strained, tried to steer back to safer ground. "All right, let's lighten it up. Tell us about working with your co-star. Man, she's a legend." But Kevin wasn't budging. He leaned back, crossing his arms, his face unreadable. "You know what, Kelly? Maybe I'm tired of playing nice for everybody." The words landed like a punch, and the audience held its breath, waiting for what came next. The studio air grew thick, the kind of silence that screams trouble. Kevin Hart's words, "Maybe I'm tired of playing nice for everybody," echoed in the space, a gauntlet thrown down. The audience, frozen, waited for Kelly Clarkson to respond, their eyes darting between the two stars. Kelly's face, usually a beacon of warmth, hardened just enough to show she wasn't backing down. Her fingers gripped the note cards, crinkling the edges, but her voice stayed calm, professional. "We're just having a conversation, Kevin," she said, her Texas drawl steady. "This is what we do here, share stories, connect with folks." She gestured to the crowd, hoping to pull them back in, but their murmurs grew, a restless undercurrent. Kevin's eyes narrowed, his posture rigid. "Connect, bad what you call it," he said, his voice dripping with edge. "Sounds more like you're trying to crack me open for ratings." The accusation landed hard, gasps rippling through the audience. Kelly's jaw tightened, but she kept her cool. Years of hosting, sharpening her instincts. "Nobody's cracking anybody," she said, forcing a smile. "We're here to talk about you, your work, what's got you fired up." She leaned forward, trying to bridge the gap. But Kevin wasn't biting. He uncrossed his arms, pointing a finger toward her, not aggressive, but firm. "What's got me fired up is people acting like they know me, like they're entitled to every piece of my life." The crowd shifted, some nodding, others whispering, torn between the drama unfolding and their loyalty to Kelly. Offstage, the producers were in chaos, one barking into a headset, "Get ready to cut to commercial." But the cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the unraveling. Kelly, sensing the show slipping, tried to pivot again. "All right, Let's talk about what you want then. This movie, your co-star, the laughs. What's the vibe? Her voice lifted, aiming for upbeat, but Kevin's stare didn't soften. The vibe, he repeated, almost mocking. The vibe is I'm here to promote a project, not spill my soul. But you keep pushing, like it's your job to fix me. Kelly's smile vanished, her patience fraying. Fix you? Kevin, I'm asking questions, same as I do with every guest. Her tone sharpened, a rare glimpse of steel beneath her charm. The audience leaned in, sensing a line crossed. Kevin scoffed, leaning back, his hands spread wide. Every guest. You don't grill them like this. Kelly, you save the deep cuts for me, because what? You think I owe you some big emotional moment. The words stung, and Kelly's eyes flashed, her composure cracking. I'm doing my job. Kevin, you don't like it, that's on you. The exchange was electric, a verbal sparring match neither seemed ready to lose. The audience, now fully hooked, clapped sporadically, unsure who to root for. A woman in the front row shouted, "Tell him, Kelly," sparking a mix of cheers and boos. Kevin's head snapped toward the crowd, his expression darkening. See, this is what I mean. Everybody wants a piece, wants me to play the part they expect. He turned back to Kelly, his voice lower, almost pleading. I'm a comedian, not your therapy session. Kelly took a breath, her hands unclenching, trying to salvage the moment. Nobody's saying you're anything but you, Kevin. But you're on my show, and we talk real here. If that's too much, I get it. Her words were measured, but the challenge was clear. Kevin stared, his chest rising, like he was weighing his next move. The studio held its breath, the camera zooming in, catching the fire in his eyes. Then, he stood, slow and deliberate, his mic still clipped to his jacket. Maybe it is too much, he said, his voice quiet but final. The audience gasped, and Kelly's eyes widened, her hand reaching out, as if to stop him. Kevin Hart stood, his frame small but commanding, the studio lights catching the defiance in his eyes. His words, maybe it is too much, hung in the air, a quiet bombshell that silenced the audience. Kelly Clarkson's hand, outstretched, froze mid-gesture, her face a mix of shock and frustration. The crowd, caught in the drama, held its collective breath, some leaning forward, others clutching their seats. The cameras, unblinking, captured every angle, the tension thick enough to choke on. Offstage, the producers scrambled, headsets buzzing with panic. One whispering, he's walking, he's actually walking. But Kevin didn't move yet, his gaze locked on Kelly, like he was daring her to speak. Kelly, her composure fraying, but still intact, lowered her hand, her voice steady but laced with steel. Kevin, you don't have to do this. Sit down, let's talk, let's keep it real. Her plea was genuine, her eyes searching his for a way back to civility. But Kevin shook his head, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. Real? That's what you call this circus? He gestured to the audience, the cameras, the set. You think this is real? This is a game, Kelly, and I'm done playing it. The crowd murmured, some clapping in support, others booing softly. Torn between their love for both stars, the accusation stung. And Kelly's face flushed, her southern charm giving way to raw honesty. A game. Kevin, I'm here every day, pouring my heart out for these people, she said, pointing to the audience. You think I don't get tired too? You think I don't feel the pressure? But I show up, and I try to make it mean something. Her voice cracked, just enough to show the hurt, and the audience responded, a wave of applause rolling through the studio. Kevin's jaw tightened, his hands flexing at his sides, like he was fighting an urge to fire back. Instead, he took a step toward the edge of the stage, his mic still live, picking up every word. You show up, sure, but you don't get to decide what I owe you, what I owe them, he said, nodding toward the crowd. I've been carrying everybody's expectations my whole life, and I'm tired, Kelly. Tired of being your feel-good story. The rawness in his voice cut through the noise, and for a moment, the audience softened, some nodding, feeling the weight of his words. But Kelly wasn't letting it go. She stood now, matching his stance, her eyes blazing. Nobody's making you a story, Kevin. You're here because you're you, because people love you, but you're acting like we're the enemy. The word enemy hit hard, and Kevin's eyes flashed, his voice rising. You want to know what's the enemy? It's this whole setup. Where I gotta smile and pretend everything's fine while you dig for some moment to make your show pop. The audience gasped, the tension spiking, a few shouts of come on, Kevin mixing with scattered cheers. For Kelly, the producers, now frantic, signaled for a commercial break, but the director shook his head, too invested in the chaos to cut away. Kelly took a breath, her hands on her hips, her voice low but firm. If you think that's what this is, then you don't know me at all. Kevin paused, his chest heaving, like he was teetering on a decision. The studio was a powder keg, every eye on him, waiting for his next move. He looked at the audience, then back at Kelly, his expression softening for a split second, almost regretful. Maybe I don't, he said, quieter now, but the edge was still there. Then, without another word, he reached for his mic, unclipping. it with a deliberate tug. The small act felt massive, a declaration of finality. He tossed it onto the chair, the thud echoing through the speakers, and started walking off stage, his steps slow but certain. Kelly stood frozen, her mouth open, as the audience erupted, some cheering, some booing, all reeling from what they'd just witnessed. Kevin Hart's footsteps echoed as he walked off stage, the discarded microphone lying limp on the chair, its faint hum a reminder of the bombshell he'd just dropped. The audience was a mess, a cacophony of cheers, boos, and stunned whispers, their energy feeding the chaos. Kelly Clarkson stood rooted, her face a storm of emotions, shock, anger, and something softer, maybe hurt. The cameras, relentless, zoomed in on her, catching the way her hands trembled before she clasped them tightly. Offstage, the producers were in full panic, one shouting into a headset, "We need to cut, now." But the director, eyes wide, waved them off, sensing the raw drama was gold. The show was teetering on the edge of disaster, or maybe history. Kelly took a deep breath, her years of performing kicking in. She turned to the audience, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Well folks, that was unexpected," she said, her voice steady but strained, earning a few nervous laughs. "Let's take a quick break, come back with some music." "All right." The crowd clapped, some hesitantly, others with fervor, still processing the clash. The stage manager signaled, and the show cut to commercial, the screens fading to a bright ad for toothpaste, a jarring contrast to the tension. Backstage, the crew buzzed, some rushing to find Kevin, others huddling around monitors, replaying the moment he walked off. In the green room, Kevin paced, his hands on his hips, his breathing heavy. His manager, a wiry guy with a perpetually stressed look, burst in, phone in hand. "What was that, Kev? You just torched the whole segment." Kevin spun, his eyes blazing. "I'm done with it, man, done with being everybody's dancing monkey." His voice cracked, not with anger, but something raw, exhaustion maybe. The manager softened, lowering his phone. "I get it, but you can't just walk off like that. You know how this looks." Kevin shook his head, sinking onto a couch, his hands rubbing his face. "I don't care how it looks. I'm not a prop for her show." Meanwhile, Kelly sat in her dressing room, the door half open, her assistant hovering nervously. She stared at the mirror, her reflection showing lines of strain she hadn't noticed before. "Did I push too hard?" she asked, almost to herself. Her assistant, a young woman with wide eyes, hesitated. "You were just doing your job, Kelly. He came in hot, you know." Kelly nodded, but her frown deepened. "Maybe, but I saw it in his eyes. Something's eating at him." She stood, smoothing her dress, her resolve hardening. "I'm not letting this end like that. Not on my show." Back in the studio, the audience buzzed, phones out, some already posting clips. The moment going viral before the commercial break ended. The crew scrambled to reset, the band warming up, but the energy was off, the room still reeling. Kelly returned to the stage, her smile brighter, faker, as she launched into a quick segment with the band, her voice soaring but her heart elsewhere. The audience clapped along, but their eyes kept drifting to the empty chair where Kevin had been. Whispers spread. Was he coming back? Was the show over? In the hallway, Kevin's manager was on the phone, damage control in full swing, when a producer approached, breathless. "Kelly wants to talk to him." "Off camera, now." Kevin, overhearing, stood, his jaw tight. "Talk." She had her chance. But the producer, a seasoned woman with a no-nonsense stare, didn't budge. "She's not the enemy, Kevin. You know that. 5 minutes. Hear her out." Kevin's eyes flickered, doubt creeping in, his anger cooling just enough to listen. He nodded, short and sharp, and followed her down the hall, the weight of the moment trailing him like a shadow. The hallway outside the studio was dim, lined with posters of past guests, their smiles frozen in time. Kevin Hart followed the producer, his steps heavy, his face a mask of guarded tension. The producer led him to a small conference room, bare, except for a table and a few chairs, where Kelly Clarkson waited, standing by a window overlooking the lot. Her arms were crossed, but her expression wasn't hostile, more like someone bracing for a storm. The producer shut the door behind Kevin, leaving them alone, the hum of the studio distant now. The air felt fragile, like one wrong word could shatter it. Kelly spoke first, her voice low, steady. "I didn't mean to push you out there, Kevin. That's not who I am." She uncrossed her arms, her hands open, a gesture of sincerity. Kevin stood by the door, his posture stiff, but his eyes met hers, searching. "Then why'd it feel like you were coming for me?" he asked, his voice quieter than on stage, but still sharp. Kelly sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I was trying to connect, to get something real. People love you for more than the jokes. You know that." Kevin's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt, letting her go on. "I saw you tense up. I should have backed off, but I thought we were vibing." Vibing? Kevin let out a short, bitter laugh, shaking his head. "Kelly, you don't get it. Every time I sit on a couch like yours, it's the same thing. People want me to bleed for them, to give them some big moment. I'm tired of it. His voice cracked, raw, and for the first time, Kelly saw past the defiance to the weight he carried. She took a step closer, her eyes softening. I hear you, and I'm sorry it felt like that. But I wasn't trying to make you a spectacle. I thought we could talk, like friends. Kevin's gaze dropped to the floor, his hands in his pockets, wrestling with her words. Friends don't put friends on the spot like that, he said, but the edge was gone, replaced by something tired, almost vulnerable. Kelly nodded, her lips pressed tight. Fair, I messed up, but you didn't have to walk out. Kevin, that hurt, not just me, but them. She gestured toward the studio, meaning the audience, the crew, the fans, watching at home. Kevin looked up, his expression conflicted, like he was replaying the moment he tossed the mic. Outside, the show rolled on, the band's music filtering through the walls, the audience clapping along, unaware of the conversation unfolding. Kelly's assistant peeked in, signaling time was short, but Kelly waved her off. Focused on Kevin. You're not a prop. Nobody thinks that, she said, her voice earnest, but you're also not just a guest. You're Kevin Hart. People feel something when you talk, when you're real. That's why I pushed, maybe too hard. Kevin's eyes flickered, her words hitting a nerve. He took a breath, like he was about to speak, then stopped, his shoulders slumping. I don't know how to do this sometimes, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Everybody wants something, and I'm just trying to keep it together. It was the most unguarded he'd been, and Kelly felt the shift, the crack in his armor. She stepped closer, not crowding him, but close enough to show she was there. You don't have to do it alone, Kevin, not out there, not here. She paused, then added, come back out, finish the show. Not for me, for you, for them. She nodded toward the door, her eyes steady, hopeful. Kevin looked at her, then, at the door, his mind racing. The producer's words, the audience's cheers, Kelly's apology, all swirled in his head. He could walk away, let the story end here, with him as the guy who stormed off. Or he could go back, face the crowd, maybe find a way to make it right. His hand hovered over the doorknob, his decision hanging in the balance, the weight of the moment pressing down. Kevin Hart's hand lingered on the doorknob, the cool metal grounding him as Kelly Clarkson's words echoed in his mind. Her plea, come back out, finish the show, hung between them, a lifeline he wasn't sure he wanted to grab. The conference room was quiet, save for the faint thump of the band's music seeping through the walls, a reminder that the show went on without him. Kelly stood a few feet away, her eyes steady, giving him space but not backing down. Kevin's chest rose with a deep breath, his face unreadable, caught between pride and something softer, maybe regret. He opened the door, the hallway's hum rushing in, and stepped out without a word, leaving Kelly to follow. The producer, waiting outside, exhaled, her relief palpable as she led them back toward the stage. The audience's applause grew louder, the commercial break ending, the show's energy pulling them like a current. Kelly glanced at Kevin, her expression a mix of hope and caution, but he kept his eyes forward, his jaw set. Backstage, the crew parted for them, whispers trailing in their wake. The stage manager handed Kevin a new mic, his old one still on the chair, a silent testament to his exit. He clipped it on, his fingers steady, and nodded to Kelly, a small gesture, but enough to signal he was in. The band's music swelled, the lights flared, and Kelly strode out first, her smile bright, masking the storm they'd just weathered. All right, y'all, we're back, she shouted, her voice lifting the crowd, who cheered, sensing something big. Then she turned, her arm outstretched. And guess who's with me? Kevin Hart. The audience erupted, some standing, others shouting his name, their energy a mix of surprise and excitement. Kevin walked out, his grin back, but different, less polished, more real. He waved, soaking in the love, and sat, his posture looser now, like he'd shed a weight. Kelly settled into her chair, her note cards untouched, her instincts guiding her. So, Kevin, we had a moment earlier, didn't we? She said, her tone light but honest, earning a ripple of laughter from the crowd. Kevin nodded, his smile wry. Yeah, we did. I got a little hot, you know. The audience chuckled, leaning in, hooked. Kelly tilted her head, her warmth returning. We both did. But you're here, and that's what matters. So, let's do this right. Talk about this movie, the laughs, the heart. She paused, then added, and whatever else you want to share. Kevin leaned forward, his hands clasped, his eyes meeting hers. All right, let's do it, he said, his voice steady, genuine. He launched into a story about his coaster, a legend who kept him on his toes, his humor sparking, the crowd roaring. But then he slowed, his tone shifting. You know, Kelly, this movie, it's got some heavy stuff. Family, struggle. It hit close to home. The audience quieted, feeling the shift. Kelly listened, her face open, no pushing, just space for him to speak. I don't always talk about that, because it's hard, but maybe I should, he said, his voice low, raw. The room was still, every eye on him. the cameras catching the moment, not as a spectacle, but as something real. Kelly nodded, her eyes shining. That's why we love you, Kevin, for all of it. The laughs, the heart. The crowd clapped, not wild, but warm, like they were part of something deeper. Kevin smiled, small but real, and leaned back, the tension gone, replaced by a quiet understanding. The rest of the segment flew, jokes landing, stories flowing, Kelly and Kevin vibing like old friends. As the show wrapped, Kelly stood, hugging Kevin, the crowd on their feet, cheering for them both. Backstage, they lingered, no cameras, just a nod, a shared look that said they'd weathered something together. The audience left buzzing, phones lighting up with posts, the clash and comeback already trending. Kevin's walk-off wasn't the story, it was the return, the raw, messy truth of two people finding their way back to respect, maybe even friendship, on live TV.